administrative things to get through first, so hopefully Lisa will be here by then. So let's open the meeting for the Fayston Selectboard for Tuesday, February 25th at 6 p.m. at the Robert Vassar Town Hall. Why don't everybody, we'll start in the back, Sarah, to introduce themselves and why you're here.
Sarah's got treasure, I guess.
Yes, you are.
I guess.
I'm Doug Mosley, a lister and citizen.
Mike Bishop, a resident and school board rep.
All right, Mike Jordan, select board member.
Rick Rayfield, moderator.
Ron Graves, select board member.
Eve Silverman minutes.
Madison Vassar, town clerk and select board assistant.
Chuck Martell, select board member. And we're waiting for Lisa Essler to join us, hopefully. But in the meantime, we'll get started with the agenda. The first item is to approve the select board minutes of February 11th, 2025. Did everyone get a chance to read those?
Did.
Yes. All right, do we have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept those.
Mike.
I'll second it.
Ron seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous, the minutes are approved for February 11th. We do have a deletion to the agenda. I met with Josh Livingston this noontime, and he's not able to make it today. So we're not gonna have a road foreman update this evening. But because I talked to him, I'll mention what he talked to me about, but there's not a lot to cover other than snow and rain anyway. Public comments is the next section, and I don't know if anyone has any comments other than the reason that you were attending tonight. So the next item then is the tax increase due to Fayston CLA. And maybe we'll wait for Lisa to join us.
Should be here. In the second.
Okay, okay. Because once we get into the warning for town meeting, that's gonna take us a little bit of time.
It'll be in like 2 seconds, 2 minutes.
Oh, you give it text her?
Yeah. I texted
Oh,
her. She
excellent, okay.
said she.
Should we do the liquor licenses? We can jump right to that. And who do we have, Maddie, for?
It's just because the one that you,
Oh, that's right, we have to ratify it, yes,
that's the minutes.
all right, and this is,
The minutes that you just approved. You just.
okay,
That liquor license was for February 14th, so it's already passed.
Correct, but
Okay.
we had to, they accidentally sent it to Waitsfield. And so then there was kind of a panic, they needed it right away, so
Okay,
they approved it.
okay.
But we're just,
okay, so the minutes are signed. And who do we have for the,
Is there a phone ringing?
Sounds like it.
and we just need to give you authorization to approve the liquor license.
it already happened.
Oh,
We're just going
that's
over it,
right.
so that it's on them.
That's right, okay, so
It's-
really,
Yeah.
we don't need to do anything.
Right, not really.
Okay. All right,
We got-
yeah, that's me. Oh,
We could do the
sorry about that,
excess weight permit though.
okay. For McCullough crushing, which is really important to us here. Excess weight permit, everybody good with me saying that?
Yeah.
Okay. And we don't have any other business that I'm aware of.
Which minute?
I just thought it was well, we had kind of been this out a little bit, so I can just give a quick intro and then she'll be here any second if you want.
Let's do that, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So give you a little preview for in case you want to talk again on Tuesday or whatever, but just like last year, we're in another predicament again. And you know, Fayston and has what I think is two really outspoken reps on the school board, which is myself and Danielle. It's not, being on the board is not necessarily, it's not the PTO, it's not a sunshine board. You are really, in fact, an elected official. You are there to represent your town and your best interests. It's a little unusual in the fact that we also are the school board of other towns as well. But in the end, we have to represent Fayston and the best interests for Fayston. And that gets lost sometimes in town, in members on the board. I think there's a lot of times where it's people want to have an alliance or they don't want to have conflict. They're like, oh, I don't want to disagree with this person or that person, but that's what you're there for, is to have disagreements. How you do it, of course, is the art of being on the board. And so once again, we found ourselves in a situation where we have a lot of schools, we have a lot of staff. And because of a number of factors that Lisa will just talk about a little bit about, you know, how we have to pay for special ed and how it's calculated and how the fact that we don't have a lot of, free and reduced lunch students and English as a second language students, which is what the state uses this really crazy formula to determine what goes into your calculation of your budget. And it all leads to this moment here where you take into consideration CLA and how many sales there's been, and they put you, it's like how sausage is made, right? And you put it in and it comes out with this formula. And unfortunately, while the other towns have gone down a little bit, and not a lot, it's like $50, I think, in Waterbury, but it's nice to say that, right? Fayston finds itself with the tax increase. And again, we still be here in a second to give you the forensic on why that is. But just in general, the select board chair and the vice chair sent out their own correspondence, and a lot of times that gets into that's the board feels. And they, it's kind of out of courtesy, the chair and the vice chair gets the pulpit to opine their own personal opinions and agendas and that sort of thing. And that's kind of what's happened in this case, right? So the governor's come out with this new plan. And it's shocking in a lot of ways, but it's a plan, right? And it's more than what we've had, in other years. Do I think that plan is going to be the way it is? No, there's going to be lots of changes to it. I think one of the big changes is probably going to be, we're not going to have 5 school districts. We're probably going to end up with like maybe 12 or 14, which kind of coincides with how many counties we have and that sort of thing. But it's a plan. And so while there are people on the board that are 100% against this, oh, it's going to close schools and this, that, and the other thing. Yeah, it might. But we have to have a decision, we have to decide, do we want to be against every possible thing, right? Or do we want to be part of the conversation to try to put our agenda forward? That's the way that Danielle and I have approached being on the board. This is actually my almost 9th year being on a school board. I have 6 up in the islands. I said I was never going to do it again. And here I am. I think I'm on year 3 and I still have like 2 more years to go if I make it that long. But Fayston has to have representation. We have to have people that want to hear from residents. People email me, I email them back, especially if they're Fayston residents. I always try to email back, even if it's for something that might not even be something I can affect change on. It could be a problem at the school that I have nothing to do with, but you still try to help that person. But the bottom line is there's going to be changes in the school district. There has to be. It's unpopular. My children went to a small school, 150 kids at the height. Very similar to Fayston. I know Justina, I meet with her regularly, I talk with her regularly, and we,
I like so.
We get the lay of the land, the vibe. It's hard in Fayston because we don't have a lot of places to socially gather. Most of the stores are in another town and, so that sort of thing. But I do hear from feedback. And so my feeling is that when, this governor's plan, while you may see some things coming from the school board chair, you have to make sure the correspondence, who is it from? Is it signed by the big board or is it just from individual people? And that's where you can determine kind of what the messaging is, right? Could there be, it has been brought up before that there has been disagreements between the messaging coming from the board chairs or leadership versus what a lot of other people are thinking, and so there's been talk of, well, maybe we should send out our own letter, right? But then it looks silly. It looks, like, come on, let's get your act together. We're spending millions of dollars here. We're trying to educate children and we have infighting on the board or something like that. I don't think that's good business.
Mm.
So we try to affect change by having smaller conversations with people, trying to find common ground. But there's a lot of good stuff that's in that plan. Again, I think as it evolves, you'll see some changes, but our district is going to look a lot different. That's my prediction. I don't want to put a timeline on it, but I'm going to say in the next maybe even two years, you could see some big changes. We just signed, if anybody follows along, we signed a contract with Truett Collins to go in and really look at what we have for facilities and buildings and schools and come up with a number of configurations. And there was probably 20 of them they came up with. And in the end, it was probably a little bit too much, but they've narrowed it down to some new configurations to try to bring our long-term costs down. There may be short-term costs, with trying to outfit different schools and for different needs and stuff, but in the long term, it could be something really positive for the school district. So I kind of jumped around a little bit, but it all leads up to budget season. And Lisa, who we're lucky to have all the way from New Jersey, Rutgers University, and I don't know why she wants to be in this job. It's painful, old software, crazy formulas on how to fund education, but yet she's here. We're lucky to have her, even sometimes when it's bad news. So I'm gonna stop talking because we all want to hear what you have to say about Fayston and why our taxes are gonna go up again.
Thank you, Mike. And you had mentioned something in the beginning. Are you going to say something at town meeting?
Well, usually I do. I wasn't sure if I think Danielle's gonna come to town meeting, so she says she's done, but I think that she will make an appearance for this, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
because hopefully Rick will be elected the moderator again. So it'll be important for him to know if somebody is going to.
Well, usually I give like a big
Yeah.
mic
Yeah.
or something like that, so, yeah, I'll be there, so if I'm called up, I'll say something.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And Lisa, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Chuck Martell. Mike Jordan, also on the select board. Rick Rayfield, who is here, we're gonna talk about town meeting, Rick, right? Ron Graves, another select board member. Eve Silverman, our note taker. Maddie Vassar, our town clerk. Doug Mosley, who you've corresponded with, sitting right next to you, and Sarah Stavraki, who's our treasurer. So, and I really do want to thank you for both of you for being here, but I know that you were questioning what is it that I can bring to the meeting that we haven't talked about already, and we have been corresponding on email and one phone call, and so I know it may be uncomfortable, but and I'm going to turn it over to Doug, I think, because he's got some deeper questions, I think, as you saw from his email, but from our perspective, we're having real difficulty trying to explain why this increase in Fayston, based on the context of everything that we've been told over the last 3 or 4 years about how the CLA works and what the impact will be. So we're hoping, we can get some answers to that. I'm sure questions will come up at town meeting. And, but we're not here to shoot the messenger. We're here to learn whatever we can that you may have to offer us tonight. So thank you for doing that. And I will turn it over to Doug, who's been working on this for a long time, who's been providing us with information that we're kind of making our decisions on. And so, first, if you've got anything you want to present first, and then I'll let Doug ask any other further questions.
Well, I'll let you start with the
Sure.
questions and then I can try to answer them.
So I end up sort of like the unwitting messenger in this whole thing. Like I'll be the first to admit that I don't truly understand the way the numbers run. And I wasn't the person that kind of discovered this, it was actually Lisa Loomis
Sure.
that sort of noticed this discrepancy, and I ended up kind of running with it mostly because I stand up at town meeting every year and tell people my basic understanding of how the CLA affects their taxes, right? CLA goes down, the multiplier gets bigger, the tax rate goes up. That's how they equalize it. And now that we have this big board and we don't really have a local school board meeting, our citizens don't really have a real opportunity to ask the school board questions. And so when I stand up at town meeting and do my little lister spiel, people ask me questions mostly about their taxes and their assessment and how, when we're gonna have to do a reappraisal, what's this mean for us? And so I always kind of say the same thing. Well, you know, we've been ordered to reappraise, or we're going to be ordered. It's gonna take forever because there's not enough appraisers. And as our CLA goes down, our tax rate's gonna go up. And so that all seemed fine and dandy. And then, you know, the spreadsheet comes out and our CLA has gone down and our tax rate is going up by double digits. But I look at all the other towns and I see all their other CLAs going down and their tax rate's going down. And it's troubling because I'm not, certainly not questioning that there's like some sort of monkey business going on. But it doesn't follow logic. And when I see every town, except for a town that's reappraised, having a CLA going down, and the impact on their tax rate going down, it seems illogical to me that ours would go down, but that our CLA would go down and the impact would be significantly the other direction. And I have trouble with the explanation of like, well, your CLA really went down. Because down is down, and the impact should be positive in the other direction. I don't understand that, and I'm envisioning that people are gonna ask questions about this. And so I'd like to be able to give people a logical answer why we have a double-digit increase while every other town in the valley has a decrease. When we all have a decrease in CLA. Of between 14 and 23%.
Right. So it's all relative. It's because looking at all the different towns now, when we shared the spreadsheet, and I've actually made an interactive spreadsheet, so I can share with you guys, you can even post it on your website where you can plug in the different percentages. So unfortunately, Fayston spiked from 25 to 20 unadjusted 26. So it's projected the unadjusted rate in 26 estimated rate is 54.79 and the current rate is 71. So that spike of almost 23% compared to the other districts who only dropped 14% really affected Fayston. Looking at your grand list, the grand list comparing to what homes have sold for, that 23% drop is really affecting it. If I were to plug in and compared, so for instance, Waitsfield went down, their unadjusted, I'm talking unadjusted rates are 14.27%, their CLA dropped. Warren was 14.47% and Waterbury's was 14.3%. If I were to plug in that average for Fayston and say it was the average is 14.3%, Fayston would have seen a decrease in taxes. So that spike really affected, that 9% spike really affected Fayston. With the interactive, you can plug in all the different rates. I went in from anywhere from looking at your rate of your current rate would be at 55 point, well, I went anywhere from 55% up to 60%. So if you were just to drop down to like 60%, 60.79%, you would have faced and would have seen a decrease in taxes compared to Waterbury, Warren, and Waitsfield. Because of that difference, it really impacted. And I actually called Jake Feldman, the department in the Vermont Department of Taxation. He reviewed my numbers several times and they are correct. And he is saying it's really relative. It's looking at that large spike within 1 year really affected Fayston.
Mhm.
So if I were to just change the numbers and just put in 14.3% of, instead of a 23% drop, and instead of dropping down from 71.01 to 54.79, and instead of 54.79, put in 60.79, which would have been a 14.3% drop, Fayston would be seeing a decrease in taxes. So that spike in 1 year really affected Fayston. And again, this is all estimated because we don't know the yield, final yield until the end of
All right.
spring. But
Wasn't there supposed to be like a 3-year rolling average of the CLA? And maybe that's where I get confused, because a 1-year drop like that, I mean, I can understand it impacting the CLA, but I thought it was like over a 3-year period.
it is, but in looking at your grand sales, now I haven't looked at your grand sales, but looking at your grand sales, there is an adjustment that really, I guess, the last 2 years of the COVID really impacted.
Mhm.
You know, to have such a drop here, from 1 year to another, that's a significant drop
Right,
of 23%.
Right.
And that's the unadjusted rate. Your adjusted rate brings you back up to 75.72%. So it really is that, you know, and it's the measure that I use, the methodology that the state uses, that I just plug in the number and that's what it is.
Mhm.
It's just, you know, you'd have to go back and look at your grand list sales over the last 3 years and see what that average is and make sure that's accurate.
Mhm.
I don't
Which
know what the
Doug
sales
does, I mean, you.
Yeah, I mean, I do, there's not much we can do, sales are sales.
Right.
We eliminate ones that we clearly know are not on the actions, but the state basically throws sales back in if they don't agree with us. So
Mhm.
We're kind of left sort of at the mercy of the state in terms of, you know, verifying sales. We do send out verification letters, people sometimes respond. You know. And I guess the problem is that I have trouble, like, when you look at last year, when we had the lowest increase, it was like the lowest spike compared to the other towns. All 3 towns still went up, even though we all had relatively small decreases compared to the year before.
Right, but then you have to also compare it to the yield, and the yield dropped 14% this year. So you have to look at that yield, that unadjusted yield. So the yield for the current year is 8,739. I have to look at my number.
So, Lisa, how would you define the yield for those of us who don't understand?
So the yield is estimated in the December 1st tax letter that
Okay.
comes out, and that's for every dollar for property value. So they're always evaluating it for every dollar, what it would equalize out to be. So that would be 8,000, let me just. record the wrong number.
Sure.
The yield is estimated for 26 is, adjusted is forecasted for $8,553. And that's adjusted. If you were to unadjust that number and back it out, it's actually a higher yield, which is 11,879. So everything this year has an adjustment of 72.3%.
Mhm.
So you have to, everything is adjusted. So that yield compared to the previous year yield, where if you remember, we were always hoping it was gonna get up to 10,000, it never did. It got up to 9,893, so it dropped this year, so
Mhm.
that's a drop as well, so you're always comparing that to the yield as
So
well.
what is the yield?
Yeah, what
is the yield?
based on?
It's based, well, it's based on the entire state, the state budget and all the preliminary budgets, and what they look at what's being pulled in from the, educational fund and
Okay.
what all the district's budgets would be, and then what it would cost to fund all of the budgets based on $1. So it's an estimate, and if you recall, it's never finalized till the end of the legislature session, because by that time, then it's past March
So what
fourth.
is the difference between the adjusted yield and the actual yield? What's the?
Well,
adjustment?
this year is, they've put a statewide adjustment in on all the CLAs, so remember, your CLA went up. Your adjusted CLA, there's a 72% adjustment that the state put in this year, and your adjusted CLA. So your unadjusted projected CLA for fiscal year 26 is 54.79. But because of this statewide adjustment, it's now projected to be 75.72 for this year, for fiscal year 26. There's a statewide adjustment that they put in throughout the whole state.
So, and I guess I'm still confused. So what is like the $5,000 or the 8,000 or 10,000? What does that number relate to determine a yield? I mean, a yield to me is, you put in $1, you're gonna yield 25% or whatever, you're gonna get $1.25. But, so I don't understand the relationship between the numbers. What the yield is and what our target yield is.
So the yield is an estimate that is given to us every year, so we need to use the yield to calculate. And I can share many of my presentations that go over all of this with you. Let me just open up this.
So you're trying to get a certain amount of money, the $8,000, right? But some base number is gonna yield you that number. And I guess I don't understand what that.
Well, that yield is important for all the school districts because they take that yield number and then we divide that by what our equalized pupil or long-term weighted average is. So instead of the head counts of students in fiscal year 25, the current year, with Act 127, they change the weight of the students. And there's different categories of students to give weight. So for instance, English language learners are weighted more because it costs more to educate those students. It's more costly. Or comparing a preschool student to a high school student, it costs more to educate a high school student. So a weight given to a pre-K is 0.49 versus 1.0 for high school students. So there's different weights in different categories. There's also economically disadvantaged students. So there's different categories of weights. In all my presentations, I have all the weights from what it was to what it is now. So the equalized pupil long-term weighted average weighted pupil count, you take that yield and you divide that by that number to then what we're looking to get for our homestead tax rate for the school district. And then we take that tax rate and then we apply it to all of the town's CLAs to see what then the impact of the taxes would be within each town. So it's the methodology on how we then come up with the school district homestead tax rate.
So back to that $8,000 number, again, is that what the cost per pupil, does that relate somehow to the cost per pupil?
No,
It does not,
yeah.
okay, so I'm still way out there.
I don't know how you could explain it.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's so complicated that even if you know numbers.
if you look at, it's
Which
very.
which most of us do, by the way. I don't
Right.
even know how you even begin to explain it. You couldn't explain it to the town. They wouldn't understand it.
It is very complicated, so it's a very complicated methodology and working through on how we get to the homestead tax rate. And the state knows it's very complicated, so. For the school district, we take what our estimated budget is and what all the voters vote on. Then we actually, for this coming year, for fiscal year 26, our budget is estimated to be a 2.75% year-over-year increase. But you actually net out all the revenue that we're anticipating receiving. So our educational spend that we are funding the district nets out to be lower. So the voters are voting on a $49.2 million budget, but our educational spend that we need to support because we net out the revenue to support our school district is 41.1 million. We have over $8 million in revenue that comes back into the school district. So you net that off the expenses, so our educational spend that we're asking the voters for the tax dollars is $41.1 million.
What's the cost per pupil? Based on that, in
So
the district,
the cost per
in our district,
equalize people. They do not do head counts. So if you were to look at our enrollments, including pre-K, we have over 1,800 students.
Okay.
But because of Act 127 that was implemented in fiscal year 25, there's weighted students.
right,
So that's what we were just talking about.
which we don't have many of.
Well, we
compared-
have,
Compared to other school districts.
we don't have many of the higher weighted. Like, for instance, English language learners are 2.49. I mean, all students are equal, weighted, whether it's high school students.
So unweighted,
No, they're all weighted.
no, I'm just asking you, unweighted, what is our cost per pupil in the school district?
You would, so you're just talking about enrollments?
Enrollment, yeah,
Okay.
Average cost
27.
per pupil.
there you go.
Yeah, sound familiar?
Used to do it all the time.
Throw it out.
This is the kind of fun we have on the school.
So,
So it's 27,293.
say it again,
27,293.
That's unweighted.
The unweighted cost.
That's the unweighted cost per pupil.
Well.
no.
That's statewide.
$1,000.
No, that's just our district. That's our district.
But
But
that's,
that's-
but
now-
that's,
now-
factoring- that's the,
now,
that's
that's what-
including all the money we raise that goes elsewhere.
Correct. So that is our budget. That's not
Yeah.
actual, if you want to look at what our spend is, because you're gonna net out then those revenue, that's different. So. Because
Yeah, but it's
remember,
still-
85 of every dollar that's raised for all of our town's taxes,
Right,
85 cents stays within our school district. 15 cents goes.
but that money comes from somewhere, it comes from us too. All that revenue comes from us, it's tax dollars. So
Yes.
it doesn't, to me, that, we're just,
Well, it's
It's
not
a
all of it.
different way
Some of
to-
it is passed through. from
we're
federal.
still paying that money, that
Some
revenue,
of
we're
it-
still paying,
Correct. Some of it's passed through for federal, the special
coming
education,
from us, the
Budget.
taxpayers.
right, but it's not. It's a pass through from the federal.
Yeah, it costs more
No,
money to get
it's
it there.
relative. I mean, you can't just say that it's,
Yeah.
yes, it is, but there's different weights to it.
So what's the
Well, I-
weighted cost per pupil? If 27 is the unweighted cost,
So the weighted cost per pupil is 15,485.88.
that's how they drive the number down.
The $12,000 for people doing.
It's weighted. Is the weighted portion.
It's the weighted. So our weighted student count is 2,659.72 versus our enrollment. And our enrollment this year is 1,800. I did 1,803. So that was part of Act 127
Mhm.
that was implemented this year.
Do you know where our school district ranks in weighted cost per student, which is the 15,000?
We are amongst a group of the highest cost per pupil.
But that's like in the places like in Chittenden County where they're like 10,000 per people or whatever. That's not including all of those weighted categories, right? Like that, like all of the pupils that are getting funded at 220 per pupil, all the weighted categories, that's not factored into that per pupil cost, right?
Well,
But that's added after.
no, it's part of it. It's weighted.
That's the weighting.
That's how they calculate, that's how the state calculates the cost per student. Because it costs more money to educate certain categories of students and to make sure, all of the school districts are getting their fair share of those categories of students. They are, for instance, us compared to Winooski. Winooski has a lot more English language learner students. They have over 200. We have anywhere from 23 to 27, and that's the highest weighted, which is 2.49. So many districts have been underfunded over the years, and that's why with Act 127, they changed the weights, shifting the dollars.
So the idea of weighting is not totally new. It's a different name. They used to call it equalized for pupil.
Correct. They've added more weights and they've changed the
So they've
weights.
changed the weights.
And they've added more categories and they've changed the weights.
And that happened last year.
Correct.
But
So-
it's
This
not,
year,
it's not
that
a
was,
tool.
yeah, we did
So-
100%.
So the,
Correct.
so there's, so you can't really compare last year to this year.
Correct.
And so when I look at last year's numbers and say, well, we had the lowest decrease in CLA, but everything still went up. And I look at this year and say, we have the largest and we're the only one going up. You're not comparing apples to apples.
You can't compare apples to apples. It's different. In last year's presentation, and they're all on the website, I did in the beginning compare apples to apples because I then worked backwards to see what, if they weren't with the old categories, the old methodology versus the new Act 127 weights, so we can compare apples to apples. But now it's difficult to work backwards. In fiscal year 25, I was able to do that for projection for 25, but now we are using the new categories and the new weights, so it's very difficult to compare apples to apples.
And the impact of the CLA drop really is in whatever formula you're using, and we don't really know what that formula is, but it's developed by the state and.
I mean, it's still, the fact that a 14% decrease in CLA can net a lower tax rate and a 23% decrease nets a 10% increase, still just doesn't make sense to me. And I don't think there's any way that I can explain it to a taxpayer. And I don't think that if you stood in our town meeting and tried to explain it, anybody would understand it either. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's too complicated and.
And it seems like, I remember when we were sitting here talking about merging all these school boards together. And I can't remember his name, but there's a school board member in Warren who's a theoretical mathematician. And he kept asking for the formulas. Can I see the formulas? Can I work through this? And they wouldn't give it to him. They're like, we don't know, we can't give you the formulas. And it does kind of seem like there's somebody over there that's got the formula and they don't really want to share it. If they tried to share it, there might be some revelation that the system's screwed up, which we all know it is.
Right.
I mean,
Well, I wasn't here then.
No, I
But
know.
what I can share with you is I created an interactive worksheet that you can plug in all the different scenarios and all the formulas are in the spreadsheet. You're welcome to look at them.
no, I appreciate it.
And then to be able to see what the difference is. So if you change that percentage, that spike from 23% down to a 14%, you will see a decrease in taxes. So it's really just mathematically that major spike from your CLA. Nobody else went down 23%. If I plugged in Warren, Wakefield, or, the 14%, you would see a decrease. So, I'm happy to share this with you, and you can post it on your website, and people can go in and play and see what it looks like, and, all the
You should
formulas
be
are
able to
there.
see the formulas in the spreadsheet,
Sure, you can
right?
just-
You
you
can
can just
go
click
in
on
and
this,
see what the
yeah.
formulas and. the
And based
internal-
on a
Okay.
$150,000 house or a 250,000, I have it worked out, or you can just figure out what the formula is, and if you have, I just did 100,000, 250, 350, and 450, what the impact would be.
Yeah.
But you'll see the formulas behind it. and
That'd be great.
it's Just.
Mike, you had something?
I was just gonna say, Doug, I applaud you for trying to get up there and explain it. Most of the towns that I have come in contact with want to make sure there's a separation between town and school districts. They don't want to, if people come to the select board saying, complain about their school tax, their tax bill, and they say, well, no, this is the municipal tax. That's the only thing we're responsible for. This is the school tax. Go talk to your school board reps. So, feel free not to answer those questions, Doug, honestly, because it is complicated. Danielle and I would not pretend to stand up there and try to explain what Lisa does. There are many school board members who've been on for a long time that still, it changes, right? It's very complicated. And I've actually been a proponent for separating the tax bills. So then people don't try to say it's municipal versus school, even though it's broken on there, people don't look at that, right? And so it's very complicated. It's almost, the idea that someone, you know, the average layperson is gonna be able to understand this is just, it's just too complicated. And you know, we can come up with some talking points to talk on Tuesday, Danielle and I, about it, but it's gonna be like what I started out with. It's just gonna be based on this is the factors that go into it, and this is what happened. Next year could be different. We don't know what the legislature is gonna do this year. Not clear. There's talking about changes. Don't know yet, right? That could change things. So we just have to wait and see. And what I am, like I said, what I am hearing is a lot of towns are kind of quietly trying to separate, you know, the town business and the school business, just for these political reasons.
But the fact that we issue the tax bill.
Well,
It's totally separate.
But the thing is, we don't have control of it. If we had control of it, then we could have a single tax.
Sure.
So that would be going back to local control.
Yeah, and that's why we're working hard to reduce other costs. You know, unfortunately, what I remind people, I'm also on the finance, actually chair of the finance committee right now, I'm not doing it again. But they
In our grand
is
list.
just trying to,
I mean, our grand list now.
we have a system that's designed to shrink our budget, right? Whether you like it or not, that's the system we have to use. So like when we're talking about reduction in staff, reduction in programming, sports and those sorts of things. Whether we like it or not, that's what the system is designed to do, is to shrink down our budgets. And so that's what we have to be on there. That's why I said at the beginning, it's not enjoyable sometimes being on the board. It's a lot of times it's all negative, you know, you're looking at reductions in staff and programming and all that sort of stuff. It's sick, honestly. So those are the kinds of tough things that we're looking at and that we're talking about to try to reduce those other costs. And so I will say this too, just like a couple things before we go, so I get this off my chest now before I leave, but I think that there could be more dialogue between the school board reps and the select board. I know other towns, they do meet regularly. Happy to come in. I don't know who the new person's gonna be, but I'm sure whoever it is, they'd be happy to come in, maybe not, but I'd happy to come in and chat a little bit. Purely out of the fact that I think that the town would wanna know if you guys, you know, are thinking about, you know, I've heard the highway garage, you know, at some point needs to be replaced, and, you know, I look at that thing every day when I leave, and I'd love to see a different building there. And so for that kind of financial planning, I certainly, you know, think it's good to have that kind of dialogue. And if people come in and they want to complain about their taxes or whatever, you can give them my email address, phone number, I'm happy to talk with them. If people come in and want to complain, that's fine as well.
You know, and as much as I mean, you try to separate the school taxes from the municipal taxes. We always take that into consideration when, you know, when we're looking at a year where we see the school tax is gonna go way up. I mean, we double down on trying to keep the municipal tax lower. It's just a very much smaller percentage, but, you know, so it's always in the back of my mind when we're setting budgets.
But I think by doing that and you know, talking with other towns that I have involvement with, that it almost can be seen as a disservice to do that too, because then you end up in the same predicament the school district is in, which is aging facilities that's gonna cost $1 gazillion to fix. And so by not putting it out there, I think that, and this is a conversation I have with another town, is by not putting it out there, even if they wrote it down, at least you said, hey, we put it out there, we said we needed this new whatever, and, you know, people can complain about their taxes, but call your representative, you know? We just met with our representatives, last, or 2 meetings, or I don't know, it was like 2 meetings ago, I guess. We talked about health insurance costing so much, not just municipal, but school districts. And they were talking like, oh, well, you know, it costs a lot of money to run these hospitals and these buildings and this and that. And it's like, well, that's the same problem we're in, right? It's like they, you know, they close the health centers or they're closing it. here. You know, if you look at UVM, they talk about the facilities costing money, right, and having to pay staff and all that sort of stuff, and it's the same problem here, you know, so. But we are looking and advocating for other savings. It's not gonna be fun, you know, it is what it is, but, things evolve, you know, things
Mhm.
change, that's the hard part. I always say, you know, we have to eliminate this program, well, we don't have wood shopping class anymore, we don't have home economics, the traditional home economics back in the day, so things change, you know, things come and go, and that's what we have to do.
Mhm. Rick?
I'm hearing two major variables that we're dealing with. One is the CLA, which is related to our real estate evaluation, right?
No, it's related to sales compared to our value.
Okay, great. All right, let's move that. That's something the town's gonna control, not the school board.
No, it's
No.
the market that controls.
the market.
Okay, but I mean, that's something that we monitor and that's something that's related to town business. The other is the judgments about the cost per student, given their needs. Right, foreign language needs, disabilities and so on. So are those the two major variables that have caused our spike? Or is just one of them? One?
Was this spike in?
Despite the CLA
CLA.
is strictly
CLA.
based on the fact
The
that
spike refers only to the CLA,
that's,
Right.
that is,
not to the
that's
cost per pupil.
real estate,
Right.
Yeah.
houses are selling for twice what. that's
Yeah.
for. And that's kind of beyond our control.
Yeah.
Nothing we can do about that. We do try and eliminate.
We benefit somewhat by a bigger grand list.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, spread the.
I
tax
just wanted to
over a
see
bigger
if
number.
those two variables have been, is the ones that are affecting the budget, and the one is. The spike is all about the sales.
Cause but the yield is the whole district. It's not individually by town,
It's the whole state,
the whole state.
the whole state. So that's the estimated bill that comes out in the December 1st tax letter from the tax commissioner.
Sarah, when I
That's
said,
also on the website too, if you want to see that letter, that's posted.
Have any other towns had spikes?
Yes,
Seen them
there's some
not.
towns that have, like,
Oh, we're not alone.
Mhm.
when I said
Yeah.
it increased our grand list, you had a comment. I
Our
couldn't-
grand list, an increase in grand list doesn't affect our state, our tax rate for the state. It is what it is. The state tax rate, our education tax rate is what it is. We just raise more. We got a greater grand list. It affects our tax rate for the town.
Right,
We
gotcha.
literally take our budget. So how big our grand list is, doesn't help lower our state education.
Yeah, the only thing that can really help lower our tax rate is to have our CLA go.
Mhm.
And that, the only way to do that in retrospect is to try and eliminate sales that,
That is
and we do try and do that,
Mhm.
but I have to admit, we haven't been as persistent about it because I mean, the sales are the sales, right? I mean, you know, when we were trying to avoid having a reappraisal, I mean, we go through everything single sale and look at every detail, be like, oh, there was furniture in that condo, that doesn't count. And we'd eliminate it, and the state would sometimes put it back in, sometimes they wouldn't.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, if a condo is listed for sale in the open market and has 10 offers and sells for $50,000 above asking price, it's a sale.
Mhm.
And we used to eliminate these things based on, well, it had furniture, so, but the state more and more would look at that and say, sales, you're not buying furniture, you're buying a house. you know. So it does get sometimes complicated, and we used to throw out everything we could. And then you go through this process where they throw it back in and you have to rethrow it out, and then eventually the DA would come and sit down and be like, why are you throwing these out? You know, and the answer is, we're trying to keep our CLA.
Yeah.
You know. But there's nothing to do about it. Houses are selling for double and triple
Mhm.
what they're set for right now.
Mhm.
And apparently this year was a particularly bad year. It seems like it's been like this for a while, but I guess it's finally caught that 3-year rolling average.
Might not have been just this year, but losing the old year, which might have been a more normal year.
Yeah.
which is-
Yeah.
This would be the first year that we lost
Yeah.
that light year at the beginning of the pandemic before things
Mhm.
exploded.
Yeah.
So we lost that year and gained like another ridiculous year.
I have seen a number, I feel like a lot of houses can be on the Fayston for sale. I know I saw like the Battleground condo came on for sale. I've seen a couple of other houses already just this year. So, I don't know, maybe this would be a better year.
No, they're all, I mean, Battlegrounds are selling for 3 times.
Oh, I know, I saw the one that they just listed yesterday or 2 days ago or whatever, I was
Yeah, 675. sorry.
disgusted. I was just out of Battleground the other day. I was like, wow.
Oh, boy. All right, any other questions for Lisa or Mike or Doug
Thank you very
or
much. Appreciate
Sarah?
it. Yeah, sorry, I don't understand as much.
That's
I wish I did.
I think I have an email and I'll just send the interactive.
Yes, that'd be,
as well,
that'd be
and
great.
I'll send some slide presentations
Okay,
as well that maybe help articulate the yield for you.
okay.
Go through
That'd
it.
be great.
All right. Again, thank you both for
Oh, yeah, no problem.
joining us tonight, and I gotta go back to accounting school.
It's not gonna, you need a PhD or something, I don't know, it's too complicated, it really is.
Higher and deeper.
Yes, that's right. But anyway.
All right, thank you.
Tuesday, I guess.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah.
See you tomorrow.
Well, just for Rick, so you're planning on saying something from the Lister perspective of town meeting?
Yes.
And Mike said he'd do something, so.
I'll stand up with the target on it.
I think Danielle will be there too, I think she's gonna.
Okay,
See if I can provide any information.
all right, thank you,
Thank
Lisa.
you.
Maybe soft guts. I just think like it was like phone and phone calls. Don't worry, I'm bugging now, but I'm.
The old rubber ones that.
No,
You look up first and they stick.
A Velcro suit.
Yeah.
Blow up of the market happened slower than the other towns for some reason, and that's why we're pitching the tail end of it.
That's what started my whole questioning of this, is I don't think that's the case.
Yeah,
I
okay,
don't
now-
really understand why our sales, which are reflected valley-wide, have had such a different effect on our sales.
Yeah, I heard you saying that, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, it does
make
seem a little
just
strange to
fine.
me, and I'm not suggesting that it's untoward, I'm just saying it's weird.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, and from the beginning of it, you know, my question has more been like, well, if you have this huge black number and everybody else is in the red, why isn't there a better explanation for it? And the explanation just seems to be, well, your CLA really went down,
It's in the formula. Yeah,
and it's in the formula.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it's in the formula.
yeah.
Anyways,
Go take some more pain
I
meds.
feel like I don't really understand anything.
Thanks for trying.
Yes, exactly. Good night.
Let's ask a question.
Yes.
As a member of the public. What I don't understand is why the CLA even goes into the tax calculation. I could see why the tax base would go into it, but why does the valuation of houses? There's still X number of households.
It's paid on the property tax, property value. So when a property sells,
It's based
for
on
more.
the property value, the
Yeah.
percentage
your grand
of the
list.
total burden of
Yeah,
the
right.
town.
Right, and so I think, and to make it the same
Yeah,
from town to town to town. They need to take the assessed value numbers and
Yeah.
put some weighting on them, so they all make sense together. So that's what they came up with this idea of the CLA. So
okay,
if your assessed value is higher than what the real value is, then you
Yeah.
have a low number, right?
Mhm.
And same is if it's going down, that means your sales are much higher than what the houses are assessed for.
Right,
So that your assessed value is not keeping track with the market value of the homes in the town.
okay,
which is why they want you to do a
That helps me.
reappraisal, but it's very difficult to get a
Right.
reappraisal.
Mhm.
But
right,
that's the method they use to equalize
Mhm.
everybody's value.
right, okay,
Like you're paying more tax even though you didn't sell your house.
right,
Right.
right, true that.
Yeah.
For years, Gussie used to say, we're so close to keeping our actual value with the sales values close. And that's why our CLA was nice and steady. This
Yeah.
recent market has evidently not worked out.
But the whole state is facing a problem with CLAs. That's why no one can get the appraisers, because everybody's
Right.
CLAs went up.
Right.
So this should be a universal issue, shouldn't it? With
Well,
the-
it is, but I think most of it goes back to like our, we spend $27,000 per student, but our equalized is only 15. Right? But there are other school districts that may have definitely have a bigger gap. Like their they're truly spending could be 50,000, but their equalized may only be 10.
Mhm.
And so it's that spending, it's a way to mask it, you know? Anyway,
Huh.
Match the money that's going to Chittenden?
no, to mask the amount that we spend per student, no, to mask the amount that we spend per student.
Yes,
They just say you don't have 1,800, you get 2,600.
mhm,
No, we don't, we got 1,800,
right,
no? And they're telling you that those other people cost more to educate. We don't know that. We don't know that at all.
mm,
But it makes some strange incentives.
Well, it does, you spend more. And also, like, I'm not sure I want to ask you, but it was probably getting too technical. I think we got rid of some of our AP classes,
Mhm.
right? So now we're not, those people cost a lot to educate, just like the other ones, but now we're not educating them.
mhm,
Mhm.
mhm.
Honors classes probably are gone.
Hmm.
Right? Those cost money to
Yeah.
educate too,
Sure, yeah,
but you don't get credit for those.
No.
Those are things you cut
right,
to
to
cut the budget.
try to equalize everything, yeah.
Mhm.
All right, Eve,
Thank you for
looks
that.
like your head is still spinning, yeah, join
Did
the
you-
club.
Did you get all that?
I just took down the facts. I just took down what you guys said. I'm not trying to explain anything, but I would like to understand it. I was hoping I'd understand it after this meeting.
I don't,
I don't.
yeah.
I don't.
All right, let's move on to the warning. Thank you, Rick, for joining us, with everything else leading up to this. You wanna go through it article by article and talk about it, or what's your
Yeah,
question?
let's just take a quick, in case anyone's got questions on each of the articles, let's run through them.
Yeah,
And I'll give you my perspective from being trained as moderator through the Vermont League of Cities and Towns.
yeah,
So they kind of hold us what to look for.
okay,
So, so most of this looks just fine. I only had one or two questions, but if anyone wants to ask questions, I'll just say. So, Article 1, the only thing odd about Article 1 is that, I've been elected moderator up until this article, but we need someone to take the chair so that I'm not chairing the election myself for Article 1.
for the opening,
Right,
and,
yeah.
and I'll do that.
Okay, good.
Yeah. With a little bit of an intro up to that, and then I'll get into Article 1.
Right.
So, technical question though, I'm trying to remember going back years, so often when an article is voted on, it's all ayes and nays. How does this casting a single ballot go? Do you have to ask the body for, so let's say for you,
Yeah.
they're all ayes, no nays. I cast a single ballot, or with the,
I think the best way to handle it is to point out that there is only one candidate. Would someone be willing to move to cast a single ballot for the body?
perfect,
So you
okay,
have somebody else, you're running the meeting, so you should not be casting the ballot. You should ask someone to make a motion.
to do
you
that,
cast the ballot.
perfect, okay.
That's
Okay,
the traditional.
yep, okay,
The reports of town officers, is that gonna get shuffled between the different members of the select board to different parts of the report?
well, so we had these two this evening that. I don't know that they'll come up at this point in time, I'm gonna do the select board report.
Okay,
Mike is gonna do the budget, but that's
Okay.
later on, right? You'll do it when we get to that budget item. I don't know that there's any other committees, chairs, or nobody's come forward to say like,
Since you mentioned the budget, when is he gonna do that?
When we get down to Article
15.
15.
Oh. The other side of the paper. Okay, so, yeah, it just, someone may ask that question and whoever's chair, you or me, needs to be able
Yes,
to respond to that, yeah.
yep.
Maddie,
Um, Any other questions on Article 2? Other than?
No,
So I've got a question about the language for the remainder of Patty's term ending in 2026. Was Patty elected to a 2-year term?
3-year.
3-year term? That's right, that's what we did last year. And we knew that that was gonna have to be corrected.
Yes.
Okay. I guess I would leave it like that and I can just announce when the article's read that reminded, just like you reminded me that she had a 3-year term.
Yeah.
And is she technically resigned already?
retired.
yes.
Just that's what
Retired,
I thought, and you've been appointed. And did the select board appoint you? Is that how that happened?
Yeah.
Just in case that gets come up, I have to make sure if someone says, here's how it happened, I'm sorry, somebody from the select board needs to correct you, something like that.
Yeah.
For Sarah and I. So like,
Vote yes for Sarah and Maddie.
So that covers 3 and 4. Anything else on 3 and 4? Okay.
Article 5 of.
5, do we, is Sarah running again or not?
Yes.
Okay. So that simplifies that unless somebody decides to run against her. Chuck, you running again?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay. That's excellent. How about Kim as our lister for 3 years?
No,
So we need. I'm gonna mark things that I can see that we're gonna need, and I may mention them. Right after, assuming I'm reelected, and say, look around, we're about to go through some articles in order, and just so you know, we are going to need the following offices filled. So that if you gotta make a phone call or search your soul or check with your spouse or,
or put your hand down.
it looks like we need a lister.
Yes,
Yeah,
for
okay.
sure.
This falls under the category, not state law, but the suggestion of, city of Leeds and city of Townsend, what are towns and cities?
All right.
Not leave towns, to streamline the meeting so that you don't get stuck with having to take a break while a bunch of people go out and discuss whether or not someone will be a candidate.
Okay,
If you can sort of get that going ahead of time.
yeah,
And we're gonna miss the Valley Reporter. No, we're not, will we? Yes.
This has already been in the Valley Report.
No, but the open spots
Oh,
for the town for people to consider, to get that out ahead of time. Today's,
could we put that on our?
Is that worthwhile? This
Lister?
might be, right, on MailChimp?
well, yeah, and I think Doug, yeah, I think he was talking, I don't know if he put something on Front Porch Forum about the lister, but he thought he had talked about that.
Yeah,
I think Doug has been looking for,
I think that's worthwhile. I mean, if it's legal, which I think it is.
oh, it is. Oh, yeah.
Then I think we don't
Campaigning, we're just trying
wanna,
to streamline business.
right, give them time to
We can
think about
put-
it.
And
I know
find
how it works. you know.
volunteers who don't know that openings are available.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I'm guessing Chris Griffin's still in,
yes, he is.
Yep.
and I'm guessing.
And the first
David
constable,
Copelli probably isn't.
so David Capelli is,
Oh, he is, okay.
but then Ken,
It's,
he-
okay, that's what. it is.
he's out, but they have someone ready to
So
jump
it's
in.
one-
Oh, they do.
One will,
Good.
that's good, because those are probably thankless positions that really need to be done.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, okay, that's good.
So it looks like we need 2 candidates for the 2 commissioner.
Well,
Yeah.
No, David he's planning on running again.
Oh, he is, oh, okay.
And then they found someone to actually
Yes.
run,
They've got someone to fill Ken's term.
or run at least, yeah. so,
Yeah.
We don't know who it is, but we don't care, right? As long as we got
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah, and if it's somebody that the board feels comfortable,
Yes,
Bring it
Candace
on.
And
is,
there's
Right,
two people
yeah.
running
Yeah.
for the school district. I
yeah,
heard,
there is.
what's that?
there's two people running for the Harwood seat.
Rebecca and who else?
Molly,
Oh, Molly Bagnetto.
yes.
Yes, okay, yep,
That's always good, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
For a thankless position.
Mhm.
yeah, I think
Who's the, Molly and who else?
Bagnetto and Rebecca Baruzzi.
Great.
Remember Molly was the one that everybody coming out of Sugar Bush would run into the guardrail in front of her house. I have fond memories of those meetings. Before there were guardrails there, their house was right at the end of the axis or the Mount Ellen. So people would come speeding down that road and try to stop when they get
Right
to
in the
German
door.
Flats. They go right across German Flats, right into her front yard. I mean, poor Molly. But anyway, yes, I digress.
Article 11, school director, you've got that set, near the end of. At Article 11 instead of any earlier. Will voting be taking place by Australian ballot?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what
it
it
says it, voted by.
Is
So
there
at the
any-
top, it says, at the top, beginning of the wording, it says all of the, ballots that are Australian ballot. And then, so it's Article 11
So,
and
Um,
12 are.
sometimes we have candidates for things that are being voted on. Present
Mhm.
earlier.
Mhm.
So this is an Australian ballot, arms way down at 11. We want to consider, since we'll have an audience for that voting. Take place earlier or mentioned earlier to look down and maybe instead of voting to wait until the candidates have a chance to talk at Article 11.
Are you meaning like that people are gonna be voting while all these are happening?
Right, because
You mean offer them an opportunity to address the town?
yes, we usually have people who are running for something.
Yeah, and I think that's what we would do,
Yeah, right, and during that article. Would you,
right during that article. That
right,
was
is
the
ask them if
article.
they would like.
So I'm just saying, some of them may stand up and go do their voting during Articles 1 through 10, instead of waiting to realize they could listen to them at Article 11 and then go vote afterwards.
No,
There'll be no one on the Australian ballot at that point, won't there?
No,
There won't be until someone nominates.
no, they're.
They are both on the
They
ballot.
got enough
They did
signatures.
petitions.
They did petitions.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so I see what Rick's saying is that should we tell people that we're gonna get presentations from these two people if they wanna wait and hold their vote?
But could someone come on at the meeting?
They could be a write-in, I guess we could, there's a write-in
Which is
spot.
a write-in.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and
that's right.
then the votes go to be counted that night or something.
Not that, right,
Right.
polls are open 7 to 7, so. Right, like, we won't know.
I guess that would be the polite thing to do.
Yeah, in the beginning, you could just say like, right,
Okay,
there's, I mean, I guess. The next one, Article 12, the rec district, no one is planning on
I
coming to the
wanna hear
meeting
from Chuck Martell.
because they. Are having an informational meeting, and so they are.
Article 12 kind of already solves that by letting the voters know if they read their warning in advance, that they can go get information about what they'll be voting on. Yeah, so I don't think it's as important for Article 12 to be cautioned to people who arrive for town meeting, think they can just vote on everything with their hands. But if there's no objection, I will plan to say early on, just in case you haven't noticed, that we will have candidates for Article 11. If you want to wait to hear from them.
Mhm.
Um,
Yep,
That's fair.
that's
I
good.
mean, some of them may have already advertised that they're running.
Oh, they have? They have, that's how I know.
Yeah.
Mm,
Right, exactly.
mm.
Um,
So I guess I should find out if both of them are gonna be there.
Well, no,
Okay, just,
I think that they,
If
you know, if they show, they should be there. If they show, they show. If they don't.
Mm. Yeah, so will you offer them
Yes,
The platform to speak if they're there, okay.
You know, anytime we do an election, we would offer candidates to speak anyway.
Mhm.
Why don't we take by sometimes people are still pouring in, so instead of doing it right at the beginning. And then missing a bunch of people coming late. I'll look to see if there's an opportune time to point out that Molly and Rebecca will be speaking to Article 11. And if they
Okay.
wanna not go vote on that right now. They might wanna wait till they hear from
Okay,
me. Since it's not being advertised in advance. If I look at the Valley Reporter and Front Porch Forum and I see they're both advertised that they're running. I might just wait till the article,
mhm,
just to try and get a sense of if people notice that, or if they walk in to the polling booth and go. Well, we see who's actually running. They're both on the ballot, is that right?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
okay.
And no, but can someone be added to the ballot? In the floor?
Write-in.
Right in.
But not a write-in, no.
No,
Someone can be, could someone be nominated from the floor?
No.
No.
Right, because they had missed the petition, they would have had to be.
It's like running for like a state rep.
Yeah, yeah,
You can do a write-in.
Yeah.
But you'd have to run a.
anybody could do it, right, yeah.
I guess somebody could announce from the floor they'd be willing to be written in. That's
True.
Yeah.
Mhm,
And have it answer questions, that sort of thing.
mhm.
My guess is with two people running. For a spot that's often hard to fill.
No, I think it's.
Then a third person is gonna say, hey, I want in on this.
That was exactly my point.
Right,
That's a good thing right there.
On the backside, your property taxes, is this,
Oh, you forgot the
Select board,
most
you're
important
select-
one.
oh, did I?
Yeah, Article 13, Rick.
That's their favorite
Oh,
one.
yeah, I'm sorry.
My gosh.
Do we want to entertain a motion to change the amount? Yeah, no, that one looks real familiar unless, that hasn't changed, has it?
Yeah,
It did last year.
Oh, did
I
it?
thought it last
went
year.
up from 750 that it was at for like.
Yeah.
That's why I ran.
But.
He wouldn't run at 750
I
for
tried-
3,000.
I tried to
He
get
was
some,
all in.
I tried to get some of Jared's money. He wasn't willing to borrow it.
Okay. So if anyone asks in advance, we can say, no, that's what it was this year.
Last year was last year, yeah.
Property taxes, is this all the same language?
Yeah.
Okay, so this should be familiar. And it can be advertised as such. And as I recall, we discussed it at least one previous meeting. Related to an appeal,
About the
Yeah.
November one,
yeah,
yeah,
I think it has been discussed by the Board of Abatement, which includes the Select Board and the Justices. So if anyone asks. That's Is anyone confused about November 11th, your taxes are delinquent instead of November 2nd? Because.
November one, you mean?
paid by-
November one, they're delinquent. Right?
Yes,
They're not paid by
November,
one, they're delinquent.
correct.
Not paid, yeah, above it says, I guess that is the same language, not paid. By, as opposed to shall remain the date they become. Just, it's different language, is it clear enough? Happy with it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
You haven't had trouble with
Yeah.
it, and I haven't looked at the previous ones.
It's the, yeah, it's the same.
We go round and round with this every year, but
Mhm.
yes.
Okay, Article 15, do we really need the 8 cents on there? Okay, but other than that.
Sarah worked hard at that. We're leaving the 8 cents.
No penny remains unturned.
Uncounted for.
Until pennies stop being made, right?
Yeah.
Then you have to round up.
And. Double checking, we're looking at 9:30 again in Article 16 at the school,
At the school,
Mhm.
which all looks fine to me. Any questions for my role as moderator, unless I'm not the moderator?
I think we're,
I've been looking hard.
I have a request because it's just so difficult sometimes to follow all the commentary. it can, and also, I don't know everybody, I know
Right.
some people. Can you just please either reiterate, people's names when they speak and, ask them to speak as
I will
loudly as-
specifically ask people to state their names before they speak.
Yes,
And if they don't, I will try to get them to, if I don't know who it is, I can
Okay.
call out their name and say,
thank you,
thank you, John Doe, for, yeah, you may speak. That's-
thank you, appreciate that.
We're a relatively small group and I know Robert's rules pretty well, but I'm usually a little bit liberal, letting people respond to questions. And not count that as speaking a second time on an issue. If they are speaking on a second time on an issue, rather than just answering a question, I'll try and stick to Robert's rules and ask that they hold off until all the questions get a chance to get asked. And then they can start answering them, sort of thing. I'll try and use my judgment. And if you just never know when an issue comes up that someone wants to speak a lot more on. Last year, we had someone who ran for an office and wasn't there. So people were speaking for him and stuff, so that was a little awkward.
Right.
Or they,
Right.
or they asked a question and they, so.
There's been a lot of chatter about like, if a state representative is gonna be at our town meeting or not. If they do end up wanting to come, should they come near, like, oh, for the end or the beginning, or?
Haven't they usually, I think you just suspend
Right,
and then.
I ask if
let
there's,
them talk.
I rule by, I ask, is there any objection to ask, and so it's done by, it's not a formal motion, it's not an objection, if there's an objection, I say. This is effectively a motion to not do this at this time, someone make it a motion, he says, yeah, I make it a motion, we not listen to it right now.
Cause that way they can just travel from town to town.
Okay.
I'll handle that discreetly,
Mhm.
using Robert's rules only if necessary, just to make it.
Yeah.
They're usually pretty good about letting me know or letting someone let me know that they're available. And they usually are willing to wait for an article to be finished.
Okay. I guess we nailed it.
Oh,
Well, you nailed it.
you don't need me to ratify liquor licenses or?
We already did.
No, we already did that. Ratified, we did excess weight permits for McCullough. I mean, we're way ahead of ourselves.
Awesome.
We do have to go into executive session for a couple of items, though. So. All right, Rick,
Doesn't mean that.
thank you.
I'm gonna speak.
We'll see you,
I don't need either one. You should keep moving, here's some other stuff and shine.
we'll see you a week from today. In the morning, though, not in the evening.
That was April.
Yikes. We're in trouble.
Thank you all for your fine work. No, all the questions about.
All right,
Thanks, Rick.
See ya.
all right.
I was gonna say, see you here, don't see you. please.
Yeah, yeah, you're not gonna see us here.
Even though-
Have a good night.
Right, then
Oh,
we
thank you.
gotta-
Time of work.
Yes, you can.
Yes.
Yes.
All right,
Read
Um,
and sign warrant. I think is
we have a
where we're at.
motion to go into
I think
executive.
you gotta,
We have to do one. Oh, we have to do,
this is your meal.
jump the gun.
Just spend money.
Oh. Your building blocks for success, all right?
That's your meal.
All right, well, while they're doing that, I'm gonna make a stop here. I'll be right back.
Mhm.
But you should be careful, but
Oh,
if this is fact, but my point is that 27,000, no matter who the kid is, across the board, for people, it's a lot of money.
yeah, it sure is.
And the way they wouldn't make 15,000 to be palatable is to have, rated. Like, what do you say, about 1,800 people, but the weighted.
Yeah.
2,600.
And that's because we don't have, in
Well,
Fayston, we don't.
Well,
have
no,
as
it's not
much-
Fayston, this is district wide.
Oh, it's the
Doesn't not
private
just Fayston,
district
it's the
wide.
unified district. So what it is, if we could have, I think most of ours, for Winooski's second language gets a big weight.
Right,
For us, it could be, economic reasons or something like that, but they're
That
different
the-
ratings, like, I'm sure it's available to see, but that's a lot of money per student, no matter how you place it.
so that's it. I thought I heard that the weighting was statewide, but it's not, it's district-wide.
Yeah,
So the,
the state sets it,
Oh, okay.
statewide per whatever you, category you fall into, you could be 1.2 or 1.5.
So Winooski would be a higher weighted cost per pupil
Yes,
than,
and she'd probably use that because they might be the biggest weighted district.
well, it's also probably the most, I could see why it would be, yeah,
Matter of
because.
resource, that's matter of resource
That's the,
alliance,
yeah, the trash thing, right?
yeah,
Whatever, yeah.
like we are representatives that. And
That's our yearly contribution to that.
do we get,
You get a report.
I'm gonna,
I think you should be on that committee.
I am, I go on the computer and make it, but I never get any emails, so.
Oh, yeah, get your vote out.
So, but my point is, I think budget year. We should really look at all the intertwined donating. Like Madville Rec District versus Madville Path and.
Yeah, that's less, there's not much in donating on that.
No, not that, no,
That's
but I'm saying,
derived from.
but it
the
makes me
expense.
think about all of the things that
Yeah.
are like intertwined and some of those people we give to actually give to Madville Path.
That's
Right,
true.
the Matter Rec District gives to Matter Path and we give to Matter Path. It's like somehow, and they all have, executive directors and. I think somehow, and it's gone on for years, like, some of the things, were started for a certain purpose. It's like a lot of
No, there is.
things. And then because their purpose is left, it's kind of morphed into something else. I see a couple of those things.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be a valley-wide.
Perfect.
When we're doing valley-wide things, it should have one roll-up.
One what?
It should have one roll-up organization.
So but I see it here and there. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, there's like, well, now there's like 4.
Like you mentioned it too, like
Well, there's MRB Stewart.
yes,
there's
that's the one that
The
when
planning
it comes to
commission, there's a rec district.
That's
You
what-
need it,
Central
and then now
Vermont,
in
the
the
Matter
path,
Valley, the Central
and
Vermont.
then now the path extension with Micah, what's that? Or is he under the
Yeah.
path?
Oh,
He's
under
the path.
He's the path, but he's
Yeah.
looking for money for another cause, which may be getting money from other places too.
All right, or like the chamber as well, right?
Yeah,
That's in the West.
So, cause we get those budget things and they just skip before us, we go, oh, yeah, we did that last year, whatever, but somehow we gotta sort it out.
Mhm.
Just a thought, I think.
Mhm.
I would agree.
But
I would agree.
it won't happen overnight,
No,
but I think we gotta call some people out on it.
yeah, and maybe we gotta be a little more diligent than we have in the past few years of having people come in and do presentations.
Well, I think they also need to provide their,
They're accounting.
yeah,
Yeah,
And you see some of it in the town report, but you don't see an accounting of it, you don't see where the funds coming from, you say, oh,
and I can see that they're not gonna probably publish that in every town report.
no,
But they need to come to us with it.
exactly, it's like what we have for the ambulance service, right?
Yeah.
It was an eye opener.
Right.
Um,
And we asked that because that was the first time they came and asked for money, because they had been all voluntary.
and some of these other ones are small,
Yeah.
but they keep track of their money like everybody else does.
Yeah.
all right.
Now are we ready?
Yeah.
To go into executive session, I'll make a motion that we do that at 7:25. We have a second?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Shut her down.